From the Hype HQ studio in Chicago, Illinois, it's Startup Hypeman, the podcast, Season 12. Hello, everybody. My name is Raj Nation, and I am the founder of Startup Hypeman. I help startups stand apart from their competition and stand out to their audience with storytelling, messaging, and pitches that perform. In this podcast, you'll hear my conversations with startup leaders from around the globe as they share a slice of their company's story. Stories on growth, scale, successes, and failures, all to help you and your company grow up and ultimately stand out. Before we begin today's episode, I'd like to invite you to join the email newsletter that doesn't suck. That's right, if you head to startuphypeman.com and enter your email address, first you'll get my free SaaS masterclass, but you'll also get updates whenever we release new episodes, plus my storytelling tips and advice periodically throughout the month, and helpful resources from Startup Hypeman partners. It's the newsletter that doesn't suck, available at startuphypeman.com. All right, speaking of things that don't suck, let's begin today's episode of Startup Hypeman, the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, making his way to the microphone. He is born and raised in Melbourne, Australia, and currently residing in Melbourne, Australia. He is the co-founder and CEO of Avaana. Please welcome Rohan Pardasani.
Thanks, Raj. Glad to be on the podcast.
That's such a reserved response, given how much energy I put into just saying your name. What's with that? You're out of here. Podcast done. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, he is Rohan Pardasani, the CEO and co-founder of Avaana, a Melbourne, Australia-based well-being marketplace. In fact, Australia's first and only dedicated marketplace specifically for well-being. When we say well-being, we are talking about things like booking chiropractor appointments, booking massage therapist appointments, podiatry, osteopaths, right? A lot of these holistic practitioners, or essentially like off physician types of treatment, in addition to yoga classes, Pilates, etc. Right? It's bringing more business to those kinds of businesses, as well as making it easier for the everyday Australian to actually find and take care of their well-being journey. Avaana is a customer of Startup Hypeman. We've worked together this past year on your messaging, on your pitch, on how you're telling the story to customers. So I'm excited to have you on the show, Rohan. Now, granted, I've helped create some of the messaging, but I do a halfway decent job representing you there.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think what we're trying to do is build or rather demystify well-being for the everyday Australian. I think some of those modalities you just sort of talked about, chiropractor, physiotherapist, osteopath, I think, to someone who knows to look for them, they mean, well-being, they mean relief, they mean treatment. But to the everyday Australian who doesn't actually know what they are, they're just sort of buzzwords. So for us at Avaana, we just wanted to introduce the everyday Australian who's in pain or looking for treatment or needs help on their well-being journey to how these different practitioners can really help them.
Our topic today is winning one side of the market. So Avaana is a marketplace startup. You have the practitioners, the B2B side, you have the end users, the individuals on the B2C side. We're talking today about winning one side of the market. In your case, thus far, it's been the B2B side. Can you just talk through why this is an important topic to you and why it's on your mind?
Well, it's what keeps us up at night. Effectively, with any marketplace or any e-commerce platform, you're really trying to build two distinct communities, one on the buy side and one on the sell side. For us, it's Australians who are looking for help on their health and well-being journey, and it's practitioners on the other side, in allied health, natural health, fitness, and well-being, who are looking for a few more clients every week, every month to keep their business ticking over. They're looking to fill that white space in their calendars with new clients, because like like I know, new clients are the lifeblood of any small business. And if Avaana can help, that's great, because after all, these practitioners have sort of dedicated their professional lives to helping others. And that's something that should be celebrated.
Well, you've done at least a halfway decent job of that thus far, having already pulled in 1,200 plus customers on the B2B side, as well as earlier this year, or in beginning of 2019, I should say, raising a $400,000 angel round. So before we dive into the specifics of Avaana and our topic of winning one side of the market, let's learn a little bit more about you, the man, Rohan. And as much as I've gotten to know you this year, what's funny is that like in our Slack messages, you'll give me shit about like how the Chicago Bulls are playing this year. So I know you're a big NBA fan. In fact, your dog is named Blake Griffin, right?
Just Griffin. But,
okay, just Griffin.
But, he's definitely built like Blake Griffin. He's quite muscular, quite agile. He definitely speaks his mind. He loves a good meal. And, he loves doing zoomies around the park and around the front garden. There's no holding him down. But like Blake Griffin, so I feel he's got a really soft side. He's a bit misunderstood. He's very sensitive. So, yeah, look, Blake Griffin is not a bad analogy. My co-founder and wife, Dee, is a mad Boston Celtics fan. So I don't know if she'll necessarily agree with the analogy because she also loves Griffin. I'm sure she'd prefer you to compare him to one of her beloved Boston Celtics. But yeah, we're mad NBA fans in the Pardasani household.
Who's even out? I mean, is Kyrie still on the Celtics?
Oh my God. It's like you don't even watch anymore. Probably the most hated former Celtic now.
Oh, you're right. No, you know who it is? Who it came from the Knicks? Wasn't it Enes Kanter went over to the Celtics? Yeah.
Walker, I think came over from Charlotte.
Yeah, you're right. Kyrie's not on the Celtics anymore. What was I thinking? Now, does Blake Griffin, the dog, is it like Lob City in your house where you just toss him treats and he plucks them out of the air?
Yeah. So Blake Griffin has, I don't remember if you recall in the old LA Clippers days, there was Blake Griffin and Chris Paul.
Yep.
So we've got two dogs. The other dog's name is Merlin.
Not Paul or not Chris.
But he is like Chris Paul in the sense that he's the boss of the house and he tells Griffin what to do. So, it's all fun and games.
They're also both endorsed by insurance companies. Your dogs, that is. So, okay. So dogs aside and NBA fandom aside, I'm curious, you're an entrepreneur now, but that obviously hasn't always been the case. And I don't think anyone's always been an entrepreneur, but you actually have a degree in law. So how did you, what led that transition from practicing law, and what kind of law were you practicing, into Avaana?
Yeah, so I was a corporate mergers and acquisitions lawyer for the better part of 8 years. I worked in a firm or a couple of different firms in Melbourne. And I think over my journey as a lawyer, we were usually helping businesses and helping shareholders achieve an exit through the sale of their business. Or alternatively, we were helping them, or rather documenting the raising of capital from external investors. And I guess we were helping them a lot of times in what were the most sensitive and most, the largest transactions of their professional lives. And through that whole process, you sort of got a little bit of an insight into, what business must be about and their day-to-day lives, and what it means to be, the one actually calling all the shots and doing all the deals. And I think every M&A lawyer sort of feels this at one point in time, because we all think we're really smart and we all think that we're just, know everything, that, you've got a client on one side and you feel like, look, I can make better decisions. Like, this doesn't look that hard. Like, he's sort of, he more or less does what I say anyway. And you sort of yearn that, that you like me anyway. I sort of really wanted to be the one calling the shots, and I wanted to build something of my own. And that's a kind of the start of my entrepreneurial journey, just knowing that, there was always something more. I just wanted to be off the sidelines as an advisor, and I wanted to be in the main game. So that's, I guess, how my journey started.
Take us through the sort of light bulb moment with Avaana. What was the story there?
Yeah, Avaana was something which sort of came to us, being me and my co-founder D, when we were on holiday, and we were actually just wanting to get a massage, like a lot of couples do. And at that point in time, online booking technology still wasn't widely spread, and even if it was being used by some clinics and some day spas, there was this whole issue around trust, like, how do you know that someone's any good? And there was no sort of way for us to measure that in any meaningful way. So we were on holiday, and I think we called about 20 different day spas looking for a last minute massage. And, 20 calls later, there was still no massage. So after spending half the day on the phone of a 2-day getaway, we came back to Melbourne as stressed as we were before we left, just wanting to, have a fun holiday, but not able to actually achieve, the relief that we wanted in the form of a massage and some of the other sort of wellbeing treatments that we were looking for. And we thought, look, in this day and age, it should be easier. And that's the light bulb moment for me.
Now, for anyone listening, you may hear that story and think, oh, well, there's, like, in the US anyway, there's Mind Body, there's ClassPass, but Australia, that doesn't seem to be the case, right? Like, it's not as prevalent, or it's just not.
No, it definitely is as prevalent. But I think when we came up with the concept of this, it was quite a few years back. Like, it was 3-4 years back now. And at that point, it wasn't as prevalent. Now, there are definitely ClassPass and Mind Body. They're really great services, and they definitely have their place in the wellbeing landscape. But I think Avaana is a little bit different in the sense that, and I know we'll touch on this a bit later, we are really going after the broader wellbeing and fitness landscape in Australia. We're not discriminating. We think that there's a lot of practitioners, a lot of whom are misunderstood and have been misrepresented, and we feel that we can bring them all onto one platform and really provide, guided optionality to our user base. So, somewhere where they can come on board and actually see the options in front of them. If they have back pain, they can see a chiropractor or a physiotherapist or a osteopath or an acupuncture practitioner, and the content on the platform sort of helps them to make that right decision given their circumstances.
Right. So let's dive now into that main topic of winning one side of the market, which in your case thus far has been the practitioners to begin with. So you kind of alluded to it there about not necessarily being discriminatory about this type of practitioner versus another, as long as you see it fitting within well-being. I mean, you don't have like primary care physicians on the platform, but that's also intentional. How did you identify who these potential service providers or practitioners were in the first place? And then, just to reiterate, we're talking in this case, chiropractors, osteopaths, myotherapists, acupuncturists, and then also like your yoga studios, your personal trainers. And by the way, I don't even know what a myotherapist does. Some of the practitioners on your platform, I'm a confused user, which is, you know, on the other end, you're kind of targeting, but that's also me, right? Like I hear these words, but I don't necessarily know what one person does versus another.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, Raj. And I think that's, I sort of, being a lawyer, I came into it in a very similar manner to you. And I think part of the issue is, at least in the landscape now, is that a lot of the messaging, a lot of the branding, and a lot of the sales to practitioners, which is the platform, or sorry, it's the focus of our marketplace platform to date, has been from the perspective of the practitioner. I think where we've tried to be a little bit different is to actually say to the practitioner, hey, the everyday Australian doesn't actually know what you do. And that's why you need us, because our sole purpose in life is to really make your services appealing to them. And if we don't, then we don't actually make any money. So to them, it makes a lot of sense. You know, our business model is 100% results based. If we actually get a booking through the platform, then we charge the practitioner. And the added benefit, and what makes us a bit different, is that we integrate with their practice management system. So they're only actually getting bookings when they're otherwise twiddling their thumbs and just thinking, you know, when's my next client going to walk in the door? Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, to go back to your original question, it's been easy in the sense that a lot of our practitioners really resonate with the fact that, hey, we're trying to actually bring in people who wouldn't otherwise know to look for their services through their door. And I think they see that in the long term as something which is really worth supporting.
One question you may have gotten from investors in the past, I know you're raising money right now, so maybe you're getting this question even now, is, you know, there's such an emphasis on being narrow and specific with a user base or with a customer base. Now, as we've pointed out, you have a lot of different practitioners. They're all in well-being, but they're unique practitioners. And I recall when we were working on this messaging back at the beginning of 2019, we wrote it all down. We're like, holy crap, there's 19 different practitioner types. And that's if we're being conservative, right? But there's probably others we're forgetting about, at least in this list. So again, you may be getting this question from investors, but why go wide instead of just honing in on, I don't know, like 3 practitioners and be like, we're going to start here?
I think for me personally, I think it was, it is something which has been raised quite a bit. For me personally, I thought the value or the value proposition was really in the breadth of offering. I think if you know that you want to see a physiotherapist, or if we just want to create a marketplace for physiotherapists, what are we doing different to the Australian Physiotherapy Association other than to include the whole real-time booking aspect? I can go to the Australian Physiotherapy Association website tomorrow and see a list of accredited physiotherapists. I can't necessarily, and each practitioner type or practitioner modality has its own board, which has its own listing of professionals. But I don't know that I need to see a physiotherapist necessarily. I don't know if I need to see a chiropractor. All I know is that my back hurts, okay, and I need to see someone. And the difference being with our platform is that you can see all of your sort of different options in front of you. You can make an educated decision as to who might work for you given your individual circumstances and given your individual experiences. And then you can book an appointment with them and see if it works. And if it doesn't, you can come back and you can experiment with your other options. And to do that, we need to focus on a larger number of practitioners. The other point is that from an outward facing perspective, yes, there are 19 modalities of practitioners listed on our platform. But in terms of our sales and marketing strategy, we aren't actively going after 19. We're actively going after about 7 or 8. And those 7 or 8 are ones that we think that we can do really well in, based on the competitive landscape in Australia in this health and wellbeing sector. But we don't discriminate. So if you want to come on to Avaana and we feel that you may meet the minimum requirements, to have the minimum expertise and experience to be listed on effectively our curated network, then, we're not going to say no to you. We're going to do everything we can to get you bookings.
But it's just a certain level of like focused effort on your part across that those 7 or 8 or 9 specific practitioners.
That's right. And, we've identified them based on our early successes with those sorts of practitioner types, to the point now that we're just trying to, not we're just trying to, but we are filling in gaps in our network. So the great thing about, or the great thing, depending on who you ask, if you ask our sales rep, it's probably not a great thing, but great thing from my perspective is that we're trying to fill, we're trying to, have a network by both suburbs in Australia. So we want a physiotherapist in each of the key suburbs in Melbourne and Sydney initially, and each of the 8 modalities, we want a practitioner in each of the key suburbs. And obviously we want a different types of practitioners in each of those suburbs, so that the user has choice.
So with this, this focus, if you will, you've had success thus far. As I mentioned at the top of the show, 1,200 plus practitioners are on the Avaana platform, and that's kind of what we're basing this idea of winning one side of the market around to begin with. So can you talk through, let's take, the bulk of your customer base, maybe that set of 7 to 9. Can you talk through like what's been really the value proposition to them, and what are some of these conversations like that you're having and your sales rep is having?
So I think like you preach to us, and they're not salesy. That's the number one rule. We feel that our product or our service is a no-brainer for practitioners. We take a lot of the risk, and we both effectively enjoy the upside, Avaana and the practitioner, if we're able to deliver on our promise. So what that means is that, yes, the sale, in inverted commas, is a little bit easier. But even then, it's still difficult, in the sense that what we're trying to sell to practitioners is effectively a dream. And when you're selling a dream, I think a lot of other business owners try to, actually say, in the case of a marketplace or an e-commerce platform, we can bring you X number of business, every week, every month. For us, we actually go the opposite way. We're pretty upfront around our strategy. We say, look, step 1 is build out the practitioner network across Australia or across Melbourne and Sydney. And only once we're happy with that network will we actively start spending money on bringing on mass users. During that time, you might get, a booking every couple of months or whatever. But we've actually structured our model such that if you don't, we can still keep in contact, and we can still keep engaged, and you're not going to lose anything along the journey.
In that respect, it sounds like trust is a big part of this, as well as really just getting people to buy into the larger vision of Avaana. So I want to take the conversation in that direction next. But before I do, I want to let our listeners know about a new partner of the show in Sales Hacker. if you have been listening to the show for a while, then you know, really I've steered this more in a direction of having B2B startups as guests, or startups like Avaana that might be a marketplace, but they do have a B2B side in that marketplace. And Sales Hacker is the world's smartest community for forward-thinking B2B professionals. They got 135,000 members, and that means whether you're a CEO, a head of sales, or a sales rep, Sales Hacker is helping you get better at your job, period, with podcasts of their own, articles, webinars, and research from actual sales experts and practitioners, including yours truly, your boy, Startup Hypeman, Raj Nation. It's no fluff from outside content marketers, just like straight dope to grow your sales acumen. I really love what they're doing, and I'm so excited to have them as a partner of this podcast now and really just do more things in partnership with them overall. So if you want in on the Sales Hacker community, guess what? It's totally free. All you have to do is go to www.saleshacker.com. Again, you can join the Sales Hacker community for free and get access to the articles, the podcast, the webinars, the research, and more simply by going to www.saleshacker.com. We are here today with Rohan Pardasani, the CEO and co-founder of Melbourne, Australia wellbeing startup Avaana. And we're talking about how do you win one side of the market. Rohan, we just mentioned how a big element of this is trust and getting them to believe in that larger vision of Avaana. Can you speak to, in winning over these practitioners, just the extent to which that honesty goes with them and how you've been able to build up that trust and get them to buy into the vision?
Honesty is, you've hit the nail on the head. Just being genuine and being honest in relation to the vision, in relation to your expected output, in relation to, you know, how you're planning on actually growing the platform. I think with any marketplace or any e-commerce platform, you want buy-in. You want buy-in on both sides of the market. And that's really important. And buy-in is all about trust. Otherwise, you know, there's no reason for them to actually use you. You know, they've still got businesses, they do their own marketing. You need to be able to think outside of the box and provide something different. And I think with our practitioner-driven content, that's been a real game changer in the sense that something a little bit different that we do on Avaana, where we actually have identified blog content as being something that practitioners really want to do. And by publishing or helping them to publish blog content on the Avaana platform, it's really contributing and helping them to become thought leaders in their industry.
Yeah, so that walks into a question I wanted to ask later, but we'll talk about it now, which is this idea of really ramping up content on the Avaana site, and a lot of it's original content written by your team at Avaana, but a lot of it is also created by the practitioners themselves. So now, like, if we're just kind of taking this at face value, and we think through, like, what are the steps this side of the market has done on behalf of Avaana at this point, I don't mean to sound like, what's the word? Not vapid, but terse or ignorant about this in any way. I can't think of what is that word? I don't mean to sound blank about this, but in any case, you more or less go to a value prop. You have a value prop that you take to a practitioner and you say, hey, we can help you get more customers, but it's going to be a little bit before we can actually get you those customers. So hang tight. And by the way, in the meantime, we want you to write content for us. Again, that's a very, like, trimmed down version of that, but, like, how do you, no pun intended, how do you have to massage that language, and how do you actually get people on board with doing this for you when it's not like yet you're giving them those customers that, you know, are ultimately they're going to expect?
Yeah, look, just to clarify, you know, we do have, thousands of users coming to the platform now. So it's not like they're not getting any visibility in relation to their businesses. But yes, we're very much still at the early stages of our user growth journey. How we do it is a little bit more complicated than that, but effectively, I guess what we identified was that a lot of these practitioners, as I said at the top of the show, they've dedicated their professional lives to helping other people. And they also know that, they would like to write content about what they do. It gets their brand out there. It educates people more widely about their modality. For example, a chiropractor might want to write about the chiropractic adjustments he performs on a regular day-to-day basis and how that might help with certain pain points, for example. But, like any small business owner, they're running a business and they're trying to master their craft and they're trying to service their existing clients and they're trying to have a family all on the side, all at the same time. And what ends up dropping off or what ends up not getting done is content, which they're genuinely interested in doing. They just need a helping hand. So our content program is really designed to actually strategize with them as to what they should be writing about. We can actually help write it for them, or not write it fully for them, or write it with them, and actually edit it so that it appeals to, Gen Pop, so to speak, the current generation. I think where content goes astray is that, it doesn't relate to the target audience, and that can be really difficult, especially with health and wellbeing practitioners who want to talk about, really complicated techniques that they may have just recently put into practice, or that might be at the cutting edge of their modality. But the modern generation just doesn't care. They just want to know how you're going to actually cure my back pain. So it's about finding that right balance, and that's where we can help, and that's where we can actually streamline the whole system to actually get the content out, by making it a priority.
We're with CEO of Avaana, Rohan Pardasani, today on Startup Hypeman, the podcast. So, Rohan, you talked about how the content has been it really has been something that they want to get involved in, and it helps them as well, and you're able to support them in that process. So all of these factors that we've talked about thus far have helped win that, or get you to a point where you are winning one side of the market, right? In less than a year, you have pulled on 1,200 plus practitioners, which is, no small feat. And even if, again, no pun intended, no small feat for those podiatrists who are on your platform. Anyways, none of you could see it, but he just shook his head and silently went, "Oh my God." So, part of this acquisition process has actually been having to make a lot of cold calls, right? And in that process, oftentimes you're not able to speak right away anyway, directly to the practitioner. Like if you call the office, in a lot of cases, there's a receptionist who picks up. And I know anyone who's done sales before knows like the struggle of the quote unquote gatekeeper that is the receptionist. How have you guys been able to successfully navigate that?
To be honest with you, there's no magic formula. Ben, who is our head sales rep at Avaana, he's very personable. He doesn't come across as a sales rep. He just comes across as a regular guy who's, he's trying to obviously sell a product, but he's trying to do it in the most respectful way possible. He has all of the regular strategies around trying to extract the email address of the decision maker from the receptionist and, trying to get through to the decision maker. But I think what it comes down to is a couple of things. Number one is having, robust email sequence systems, cadences which support your cold call efforts. And number two is persistence, right? You just got to, if you want to get the practitioner to join the platform, you just got to keep going until you get them. And also number 3 probably is just knowing when to give up. You know, in our space, there's no shortage of health and wellbeing practitioners, especially in the more populated cities in Australia. So if someone doesn't want to be someone doesn't want to be involved, then, you know, it's their loss. You know, we think that we're going to deliver a great product, and we are delivering a great product. And if you don't want to be involved now, you know, we're not going to say no to you when you come back, but, you know, this train is moving, as they say. And, you know, we're not stopping for anyone.
Yeah, that's funny. That's really not a stance you hear often when you think about cold outreach. Like, just know when to give up. People rarely talk about that, and they talk about all the things you need to do to not give up. But it's funny because sometimes it's like, yeah, just move on, go to the next person.
Yeah.
Before we begin our wrap up, we have talked today about winning the one side of the market, in your case, practitioners. I have to imagine 2020 is going to be focused more, or at least part of 2020 is going to be focused more on the user side. What are your thoughts around that, and sort of what's the plan from here?
I think the user side of the platform is something that we're becoming more and more comfortable with. If you had asked me 12 months ago, you know, what are your plans to start bringing on users to the platform, I would have said, I don't bloody know. To be honest with you, you know, it's all a little bit too much. But I think what we've learned, I guess, at least through our pilot testing, is that a multi-disciplined approach to user marketing is what's required. We don't want to anchor too much to any one strategy. So I think in every marketplace and every platform which is online, digital marketing is still the key way to bring users to your platform. It gets a lot of bad rap, especially in modern times, but it's still an effective way to bring users to the platform. So whether that's you know, Google AdWords or Google Ads or Facebook marketing or TikTok marketing, they all have their place, and they're all things that we can utilize. I think for Avaana, I think influencer marketing is going to be something which is really going to be important moving into next year, because I think effectively what we're trying to sell is our services which have been very much reserved for professional athletes and for people who are somehow in the know, like people who have, you know, this competitive advantage that people didn't or that the everyday Australian doesn't know about. You know, I remember we talked about our NBA fandom at the start of the podcast, and I remember seeing a documentary about how, I don't know if you remember a basketball player by the name of Grant Hill.
Come on. I may not be in tune with today's NBA, but tell me anybody from the I can tell you about Arvydas Sabonis. Don't tell me about Grant Hill. Yeah, okay, go ahead. Documentary about Grant Hill.
I think this is a good example, given that the podcast probably goes out mainly to the US. But I remember seeing a documentary where Grant Hill actually credited acupuncture as the reason why he was able to recover from his
he had like a near-death experience,
latest injuries, and he actually credited acupuncture as the reason why he was able to prolong his career after those and recover from those injuries. So I feel like if we can actually get athletes, and if we can get, you know, influencers who are used to getting these sorts of treatments done on the regular, really communicate with the everyday Australian about how they can actually jump onto Avaana and get that same level of service for their everyday pain and for their chronic pain and other issues, then that could be really a game changer. So I think influencer marketing could really work well for us, especially because many influencers are locally based, and our service and our practitioners are also local.
Right. Right. And you've already kind of started on that journey a little bit, at least on the athlete side with, I know you sponsor a semi-professional cricket team in Australia. Like your logo is on the, what do you call it? Is it the border? It's not the outfield fence, is it?
Boundary.
The boundary. Sorry. Boundary. Man, I should know that. The boundary, your logo's on that. I think you're on their jersey as well, which is really cool to see. As we begin our wrap up, where can our listeners learn more about Avaana and find you?
Yeah, definitely. So they can learn more about avaana.com.au. We should have our iOS app launching early Jan. They can also find out more about me by following me on or connecting with me on LinkedIn. Rohan Pardasani. I'm sure the details will be circulated with the podcast. Always love to have a chat with anyone who will talk to me. So feel free to reach out.
He's lonely, friends.
So yeah, love to help where I can, and look forward to connecting with your listeners.
To close out, we'll each give our 1 to 2 top level takeaways from today's conversations or lessons for the audience. Today's topic was winning one side of the market. I'll go first on this. To me, I think one of the key things Avaana has done that a lot of other companies tend to overlook or think we shouldn't do that is that upfront honesty and not over promising something from day one to like convince them, oh, hey, we're great, you have to use us. But just being like, look, we're on this journey. It's going to be decent right now, but if all goes well, like we can provide you something amazing a little bit down the road if you'll just be patient with us. Rohan, what is your 1 to 2 top line takeaways or lessons for the audience on winning one side of the market?
Yeah, look, it's probably saying the same thing in a different way, but just being genuine with your audience and being persistent. Find the right team who understand your vision and trust them to actually implement it. In our case, with the practitioners. So, our vision was to, like you said, build something really special. It might take a little bit of time, and don't sugarcoat it. If that's what it's going to take, that's what it's going to take, and just believe in the strategic vision. If you believe in it, then your suppliers and your customers will too.
My final question to wrap up here, fill in the blank. Entrepreneurship is blank.
Is rewarding. It's certainly tough, but it's a lot of fun. So I'd say rewarding.
He is Rohan Pardasani, the CEO of Avaana. Rohan, thank you so much for joining us today on the show.
Thanks, Raj, and I hope you have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and same to all your listeners.
Thank you for those wishes. And listeners, don't go anywhere because up next is a new edition of Startup Open Mic. So stick around.
Can I kick it? Can I kick it? Well, I'm gone. Can I kick it?
All right, we're back here on Startup Hypeman, the podcast, with a new edition of Startup Open Mic. This is the part of the show where you, the listener, submit to me your 60-second or less elevator pitch to have it broken down live on air by me, the Startup Hypeman, Raj Nation. So today, stepping up to the Startup Open Mic is Kyle Miller, the founder of Goodfynd, an early-stage startup representing the DMV. If you're not familiar with that, that's the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. So Kyle Miller from Goodfynd, take it away.
Food trucks are a $2.7 billion industry active in over 300 cities across the U.S. They have also seen a 300% increase in revenue over the past 3 years. The last time you went to a food truck, I'm pretty sure you loved the food, but not the experience. It was crowded, the menus were confusing, and there was a rush, so you were stuck waiting in line. This is the problem, and Goodfynd is the solution. We give you the ability to quickly find and order from food trucks near you. We enable the food truck owners to set their schedules, manage their menus, and take online orders, while you as a user can find the food trucks near you, view the menu to order ahead so you don't have to wait in line. We have been around for about a year, and we have over 30% of the food trucks in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area on our platform. We're growing by 30% month over month and have over 2,500 users on our platform with no marketing or paid advertisement. We have in-house expertise in design, development, and product ownership. So next time you're looking for a food truck, download Goodfynd.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. So I really liked the general flow of your pitch. Excellent job there. I think you've definitely got the right elements in place and for the most part in the right order to identifying that problem up front and then allowing that to lead into ultimately the solution. Here's some feedback I've got to optimize it and make it even better. You start off the pitch with food trucks are a $2.7 billion industry active in over 300 cities across the United States. They've also seen a 300% increase in revenue over the past 3 years. Those are good stats, but don't lead with those. For an elevator pitch, lead with something that's more personal and emotional. So I would take that section that I just read back there or recited back and bump it to the end of the elevator pitch. Because I'm not going to really get hooked in by numbers, right? You want me to have something that I can have like an emotional attachment to, something that allows me to experience or feel the pain or resonate with it. I always say no one can visualize what 2.7 billion of anything is, right? There's zero emotion around 2.7 and around 3 billion of anything. And the other thing you have to realize is that in this type of an elevator pitch, you have it designed for an investor. Those kind of numbers are like table stakes, right? Like don't try and win them up front on, hey, we have this big of an industry. Have that information, but put it more on the back end because you wouldn't be talking to them unless you had a big industry, unless the industry was growing, right? So move those two stats, 2.7 billion industry across 300 cities and 300% year over year increase in revenue. Move that to the back end of this elevator pitch. And then when you can start with is how you talked is what you then said, which was, if you've ever been to a food truck, then you know what the experience is like. You have to wait in line, it's crowded, etc. So I would just start off with that. Once you identify the problem, you have this transition where you say, this is the problem and Goodfynd is the solution. I would cut out that part right there because it's obvious based on what you just said that was the problem. You don't need to then highlight it for people that, hey, what I just said is the problem. Now I'm going to speak about the solution. I would find a better segue. Something that's got a little like more pep or zip to it. So after you go through those few sentences of the problem of the crowdedness, menu issues, all that stuff, then you could go to something like, for example, let Goodfynd fill your plate. And from there, you then move and talk about the solution. Speaking of the solution, the way you currently phrased it was you say, Goodfynd helps food truck owners to set schedules, manage menus, and take online orders. While as a user, you can find the food trucks near you, view the menu to order ahead so you don't have to wait in line. Now, I think it just gets a little bit mouthy at that point. So I think the way we can trim this is by modifying it to something like, I think something as simple as Goodfynd helps food truck owners streamline their operations and helps foodies and helps, their customers find or place the orders ahead of time, right? It could be as simple as that. We help food truck owners optimize their operations and we help their patrons get their food the second they walk up to the window. That is a way you can trim down what was probably 3-4 sentences that took a lot of time. You could trim it down to essentially one sentence with a comma. And I think it won't make the listener kind of get caught up in the details at the end of the day. The back end where you explain the growth of the company thus far, I think is great. And then I would just add in those industry stats on the back end. Probably don't necessarily say like we have an accomplished team. I think that's just kind of like, yeah, okay, I get it. You already made your case with the other points there. So that's my feedback with Goodfynd. Thank you, Kyle, for submitting to this edition of Startup Open Mic. And that will officially wrap up this episode. If you have a startup that you want to submit for Startup Open Mic right here on Startup Hypeman, the podcast, then of course, all you have to do is email media@startuphypeman.com. My media coordinator will get that file from you, and I'll take a look at it. When you submit, make sure you submit it as a downloadable audio file so that we can insert it into this episode. So shout out again to Goodfynd and Kyle Miller. Good luck on your journey. Thank you for submitting for this week. And I will see you again soon on Startup Hypeman, the podcast. That concludes this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you liked what you heard, you can share this episode with a friend, or you can leave a rating and review on the Apple Podcast page. When you do that, it boosts us in the search results, and ultimately that means more entrepreneurs will listen, which means we share the message, we spread the mission, and support more entrepreneurs at the end of the day. You don't have to stop with the podcast if you want more. And if you are interested in telling your company's story better across your demo calls to investors and to any audience you seek, well then why not have a conversation with me? Head to startuphypeman.com, fill out a form there, and let's talk. If you've got recommendations for future guests for the show, or you want to be a guest on the show yourself, email media@startuphypeman.com. That'll tie a bow on this one. Thank you again to this week's guest for joining. I am Raj Nation. You have been listening to Startup Hypeman, the podcast. We will see you next time. Hype man out, word up, raise up.
Got you howling at the moon. Yeah. This a dance with the devil, girl. Instead of sundown too. Yeah. This a dance with the devil, girl. Tell me what you gonna do. This a dance with the devil, girl. And if you can't get it loose, then fall into the truth. It got you howling at the moon. Yeah. This a dance with the devil, girl. Instead of sundown. Yeah. This a dance with the devil, girl. Tell me what you gonna do. This a dance with the devil, girl. And if you can't get it loose, then it's a dance with the devil.